Hello everybody. In the last video we have seen how to create an API using Pure Elixir. In this video we are going to improve the API by adding the capability to read from a database table using Ecto. If you haven't had the chance to set up the app, please watch the last video in which I show you how to set up the API code. Once you are finished, then you can come back and then we can continue. Okay, so I have the app already installed, so I am just going to walk through the code. The main idea is to add dependencies for Ecto and Postgres to talk to the database, and also to return a JSON response. So first you're going to go to mix.exs and add these following three dependencies: ecto.sql, Postgres, and JSON. As the name implies, ecto.sql is code that Elixir uses to talk to a database in conjunction with Postgres. So let's just take a brief step back and quickly get an idea of what Ecto is. Ecto basically is a group of modules that provides functionality for connecting to a database, querying data, and then adding data, and then doing things like change tracking and validation. So repo, you can think of repo as the main API that you would interact with to talk to a database. It provides a bunch of functions which you can use to insert, update, delete, and query data. Schema is a way to map a DB structure into Elixir code. So you use this in conjunction with repo. Query is a module which provides functions to create composable queries to query the dataset. Change set is used when you are inserting or updating data into a database table. So it is a structure and set of functions which enable you to keep track of changes made. It enables you to add validation so you don't end up with bad data. When we talk about adding Ecto to an Elixir or Phoenix app, we are actually talking about adding ecto.sql, because ecto.sql uses Ecto as a dependency, and the two of them work in conjunction with a specific adapter for a database. So for example, in this case we are using Postgres to talk to a Postgres database, and if you're using MySQL, there is an adapter for MySQL and SQLite, and I believe even Microsoft SQL Server is there, but I'm not entirely sure. So once you add these three dependencies, save mix.xs and then exs, and then run mix-deps.get to install the packages. In previous versions of Elixir, when you ran the mix task to say mix new and the app name with the --sup flag, it used to create the config folder as well as a config file, which you will find here at the root of the application. I noticed that when I created this app, it did not create this folder, so I had to manually create the config folder and then a config.exs file. So note the extension .exs. So this means that this is a script file. This file will not be compiled. It is just used by Elixir to read config data. And here we are specifying the DB connection information for this particular repo. We will take a look at this in a quick second, and make sure that you have a database available. If you do not have Postgres database available on your machine, I recommend that you use Postgres app, which installs a local version of Postgres, and also you can use Postico if you prefer a GUI tool to interact with the database. So we have installed the dependencies, we have added the config file. So I'm going to close these. Next thing is you need to create a repo file inside the application, and this is done inside your main folder for the app inside lib. And the common convention is to call the file name repo, so I will stick to that. And inside this we are bringing in the behavior ecto.repo so that we have all of the repo functionality available for this particular OTP app, which is going to be whatever you name your app. And we are telling Elixir that we want to use the Postgres adapter. So that part is done. Next, we are going to talk about adding a context and a schema. So a context is think of it as a module which provides grouped functionality for a specific topic. Like for example, if you have the concept of users, you talk about creating users, sending them confirmation emails, any such other related activities, they would all go into this particular file. And this is going to be your main interface to the database. You talk to the database through this particular file. And in here, we are referencing getting an alias to the repo so we can use that to talk. And then we are creating a simple function which is going to get a list of all users from the database. I have a sample users table in my database, and I'm just telling Ecto to fetch all the users. Next, we're going to take a look at the schema file. As I mentioned before, the schema file literally maps the fields and the tables, and that is exactly what we are doing here. And lastly, we are going to come back to the main router file, which is the handler for all our routes. In here, we are going to add a new endpoint called get users. I'll just collapse the rest of them so we don't have to see these. And here we are aliasing the context we just created so that we can access the users function inside it. And this is the get endpoint that we are interested in. We are first fetching the users from get users, and then we are going to map through this collection and just fetch the field names we want. We are doing this because if you do not do this, this list that is returned by Ecto also contains metadata. Let me see if I can show that. Yes, so this is a call I made with just dumping whatever is returned by this function. And in this case, it also gives you additional metadata, which we're not really interested in. All we want to do is get the relevant fields like the name, email, and such. And for that reason, we are mapping through it. And inside the map, we're just returning a new list of new list of maps. And then finally, we are using JSON encode to convert it to JSON to send back. And in this line, we are telling plug.con that we are sending back a response of type JSON, and finally we are returning this. This is all that is needed to set up an endpoint which is going to read data from the database via a context and send a response back. However, I forgot to mention one important thing. Before we can get the repo to work, we actually have to start it from inside the application, start link. So this line is saying start the repo and make all the functionality available. If I do not have this line, we are going to see errors. Let me see if I can do that and then see what kind of error it throws. Okay, but you won't be able to contact this because it cannot look up the repo, it cannot find it. So make sure that the repo is existing and is part of the children array for the supervisor start name. And also make sure that your config has the configuration information. If I comment this out and then I attempt to start, the app, you are going to see connectivity errors from Postgres. It's complaining like, you say you're going to use Postgres, but I cannot find any connectivity information from that. So that is all for this video. I hope it was useful. Thank you for watching. If you found this content useful, please consider liking and subscribing, as it may help the algorithm show my content to more people. If you have questions or suggestions, please leave a comment.